ever since the beginning of video games, developers have borrowed from one another. Sometimes it was gameplay elements, genre, style. Sometimes they just straight up ripped each other off, offering very little in the way of a new experience. Happened quite often. Many games today borrow from video games history, and I think that's fine. Expanding upon previous ideas and elements in games can be good. In the indie world, there are a lot of games today that pull inspirations from retro games and create new experiences that just feel familiar, but in a new way. A lot of genres and styles got their start back in the 80s and 90s, and their influence is quite obvious with many new games we play today. Just the way history works, dude. It's interesting revisiting some of these old games, though, and finding ones that released way back then that seem to be heavily inspired by a game that was released during the same era. Now, I know there was a lot of games that pulled elements from Mega Man back in the day, and one that I initially brushed off was the Krion Conquest. The box art looks pretty lame, doesn't really do a great job of telling you what you're getting yourself into, but it's by no means the only guilty party when it comes to weird box arts. It's a strange one, though. Now, I first discovered this game from a suggestion from a subscriber a while back during a live stream. I played it for a moment and I thought, yeah, this is a pretty lame-ass Mega Man ripoff where you play as Wendy the Witch. But something just kept drawing me back. I played it again and again and again. It just started growing on me. Initially, I thought the game was too challenging, had way too many elements borrowed from Mega Man. I mean, just look at the enemies. They really do seem just straight up ripped off. You have selectable weapons in a similar style to Mega Man, and even the way the character looks and walks in this game. Well, I mean, if you took Mega Man, you put him in a dress and a witch's hat. I mean, just look at the eyes. It really looks like Mega Man in a dress, damn it. Now, the story here with this game, it's nothing amazing. You play as Francesca, fighting off an invasion of robots from the Empress Alicia? I think that's how you say it. We'll go with Alicia. Now, sure, there's a little bit more to it than all that, but it's fairly standard save the world stuff. I mean, it's just a old school NES game. You don't really need too much. Just play the game and have some fun, right? Now, it was interesting, though, as this game, it was changed quite a bit over the Japanese version, which isn't unusual, but there's some strangeness here, which it also did have a different concept initially going on in Japan that wound up being changed with the Japanese version. So the Japanese version of this game is called Magical Kids Doropi, and it was originally supposed to be a tie-in to the Wizard of Oz anime from the 80s. Now, the company who made this game, Vic-Tokai, they couldn't get those rights to the anime, so they had to go in like a different direction. They had to come up with their own thing, right? Now, they named the main character Doropi, which really has a similar sound to Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz. Kind of strange. Now, the Japanese version was released in December of 1990, and then the US version released in January of 91, so not too far in between. Now, with the US release, they didn't just change the main character's name, I mean, who cares, right? But they also took away cutscenes and continues. They removed all the cutscenes from the game. Kind of strange removing the story elements. Maybe it was to keep the game flowing, or maybe they just didn't want to bother with translating them. I'm not 100% sure. But essentially, they just made the game more challenging for us by removing continues. Now, I remember hearing stories back in the day about how some games were dumbed down for the North American audience, like Final Fantasy II for the Super Nintendo. But some games, especially like during the NES era, it seemed like they ramped up the challenge for whatever reason. Maybe it was to make you have to rent the game over and over again if you weren't able to purchase games too often. Or maybe it was just to make you feel like you got your money's worth because the game was fairly short. I don't know, it's just kind of a strange thing. But let's get back to this game. So sure, a lot of it will feel and look familiar if you've ever played a Mega Man game before. But is this just a straight up ripoff Soulja Boy version of Mega Man? Or is it just heavily inspired by it? I'll let you be the judge, but if I were to give my verdict, I'm leaning towards extremely heavily inspired, as the game does have that Mega Man feel, but starts to feel less like Mega Man and more of its own thing, just in that familiar shell, the more you play it. No denying the inspirations here, but things have been changed and added to the Mega Man formula. In the Krion Conquest, you could shoot straight up. Some weapons can shoot diagonal. You can also duck down to dodge. All your weapons are accessible from the get-go. With every screen you go through, it'll have you thinking until you get familiar with how the game actually works. This was why I initially gave up on it. I thought, play this like a typical NES Mega Man, and that wasn't working for me. So you have several weapons which are essentially different wands. You have freeze, you have balls, shield, broom, normal wand, and a screen clearing fire attack. Now with these different wands, I found abusing the broom made the game a little easier in certain parts, especially with some of the boss fights where you learn the pattern and can use the broom to easily avoid the attacks. I think the broom was interesting. I initially thought, okay, this is just the rush jet. But it's a bit more than that. It goes where you attack, carrying you in that direction. I'd imagine some kids back in the day, they probably gave up early in this game, especially when you came to the first spike screen, where it just seemed impossible. You couldn't figure out how to get past it without dying. You die, it sends you right back to the beginning of the level. Now this can be frustrating, but thankfully we got them save states nowadays. Thank God for technology, right? I mean, play this game, any of your games, any which way you want. Through original hardware, original cartridges, software emulation, FPGA, flash cards, your mom's vibe. It doesn't freaking matter. Just enjoy yourself. But this is one of those games that, holy crap, it can be a little frustrating. So using save states can definitely get you more accustomed to the game. I mean, they removed continues from the North American release, so we got to do something, right? And I think save states is perfectly fine. But even then, I mean, is that really an argument? You're just playing the game, and not in a competitive fashion, not to upload high scores or speed runs. Play it however you want. I mean, it's your enjoyment, right? Like if you're in some kind of league type thing, competition, yeah, you got to stick to some rules. But if you're just enjoying yourself, fuck the rules. There are no rules, right? So with that said, I think the Krion Conquest, it was a pretty neat experience for me. It proved to be more than just what I initially thought it was. Yeah, it rips off Mega Man, rips it off quite a bit. Is it to Soulja Boy levels? I don't necessarily think so. I mean, it is very extremely heavily inspired by Mega Man, but it doesn't feel completely shameless, in my opinion. And it does bring some interesting ideas and designs to the table. I wish I would have known about this one back in the day, even though it may have proved to be a frustrating experience. I never heard of this game before. And then learning about it recently and really giving it a shot, I'm glad I did. But I just feel with that initial presentation of the game, feeling and looking like Mega Man, trying to approach it like, oh, I didn't know I can move the broom up. I didn't know it lasts forever until I touch a surface type of thing. I mean, there's little rules that you just don't realize initially because you're accustomed to something else. And I have to imagine that irked a lot of people. Like, I mean, I don't think this was a very popular game. Like, I don't remember anybody talking about this one. This is one that, like, people discovered after the fact, right? From videos like this, maybe word of mouth, whatever the case may be. But I definitely feel it's worth checking out. So, hey guys, I really do appreciate you hanging out with me on this one. Had a blast playing this game. I didn't play through the entire thing for this video. Planning on streaming it in a future stream, just to, you know, try to enjoy myself and play through the game with you guys. So stay tuned for that. But thank you again, really do appreciate it. And I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom.